Today we are going to talk about measuring millimeters. This is in the metric system, and so I have a metric ruler. The metric system is based on 10. So 10 millimeters is 1 centimeter.
So Chase, I have a question for you. Which one of these three cylinders do you think is closest to a 9 millimeter? This one, or this one? What would a 9 millimeter shell fit in?
This.
Which one do you think is closest to a 77 millimeter?
This one.
What tank?
What tank? The 77 millimeter gun can be fit on a T-34 or Sherman or an M10
Oh, okay. Well,
Now this will estimate the barrel of the tank that Chase was talking about. Now I want to look for an object in my house that is about 77 millimeters to help us understand this concept. The barrel of the straw is not going to be big enough, but maybe the barrel of this cup is closer. So we will lay it on the line and see if it is close. Not that much larger. The other barrel that Chase talks about is 122 millimeters. So that is the bottom line. So it's going to be more than 10 centimeters. It's going to be close to 12 centimeters. So I'm going to look for something in my house that it is about 12 centimeters. And I found this container. This looks like it would work as a barrel, and it will measure very close to 12 centimeters, or 122 millimeters.
what instrument can we use to measure and find out which one is 70 millimeters? A tape measure. Sometimes they have inches on one side and centimeters on the other, so we have to find one. And it'll be how wide this is. Measure across the top. The diameter. That's how we measure the diameter. Chase, I would like to know which country had the best tanks.
That's pretty tough because they all had different types and they had experimental prototypes and stuff. And if they were on the battlefield, it would be very devastating, but pretty much the leader and the most powerful tanks is probably the Germans because they had the big accurate 88 millimeter, which they stuck on pretty much everything they had. And then, but the problem is they didn't have mass numbers, so they couldn't really, they were easily overpowered. And pretty much, with counting that in, the most powerful tanks ever made were the Russian tanks, because they had the devastating 122 millimeters on them on the IS, and they had the T-34, which they kept on pumping them out like, oh wait, we lost one, let's just abandon the tank and let's just put another one out there. Yeah, that's kind of fun. And also for Stalin, the name of the IS, there's the IS-2, which they did lend-lease to China. They gave a T-34 to China, they gave a T-34-85, which is pretty much a T-34 with a bigger head. And they also gave the IS-2 to them. But they also had a lot of experimental weapons, prototypes. Like, they had the IS-3, which was a very devastating vehicle if it were on the battlefield, because it had the 122 millimeter BL-9, which is a very powerful gun.
Why were these tanks not used on the battlefield?
Why weren't they? Because they didn't really pass the trials. The IS-3 was used on the battlefield, was in, well, the war after it. Egypt used IS-3s. But they also had the KV series. They had the KV series, which I forget the name, is like Cohorts, Voltron or something. KV-1, which is pretty much the main Russian heavy tank. The KV-2, which had a massive gun and a massive box-like turret. And then they had the KV-4, which weighed a ton. No wonder why I never really got on the battlefield. Then they have the STI, which is an experimental vehicle with a 122mm gun. I forget the name of it, like the M28 or something. And
What about the Mouse?
the Mouse is the largest tank ever made by the Germans. Pretty much, it couldn't really cross a bridge. It would pretty much be like, we're gonna do this, let's cross it. It would fall down. It weighed 188 tons, so I wonder why. And it had a massive gun. If it was actually used on the battlefield, there would be a very, very tricky fight going on. Because it was so big and had so much armor, it couldn't really move, but it was so powerful. You could see like 20 T-34s around it shooting it, and everything would be pinging off. Pink, 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 pink. Were we hit yet? No. Yeah, that's pretty much how it will go. And sooner or later, they'll bring out their big guns, their big old packs.
Okay, thanks. We don't even know what questions to ask. Okay, so I would like to know which country has the best tanks.
That's pretty tough because they all had different types. They had experimental prototypes and stuff. And if they were on the battlefield, it would be very devastating. But pretty much the leader and the most powerful tank